This is PNC Round Table.
Hello, this is Rick DeVore, Regional President for PNC Bank, and thank you for listening to PNC Round Table. It's on this show that we tackle some of the region's tough issues with people who make a difference.
Now here's the PNC Round Table.
Welcome in to the PNC Round Table. Back again with my co-host, Rick DeVore, President of PNC Bank. Nice to see you, Rick.
Good to see you, Paul.
And we're here, too, with the chairman of the North American International Auto Show, the 2018 edition, Ryan LaFontaine. Ryan, always good to be with you, and we've been together a lot in the last few days.
We have, Paul, and it's a pleasure every time. Thank you.
There's so many good things happening, and with the public show open, the public days, so much to see here and to enjoy. And we always like to get together to talk about a little bit about last year, but also a lot about this year. And that's what a big part of our conversation with Mike Wall will be. He's back as Director of Automotive Analysis at IHS Automotive. Nice to see you, Mike.
Great to see you. Thanks again.
Right from the beginning and right off the top, you guys were having a conversation just as we were coming on the air about numbers. So,
well, what would it be without numbers for a banker, right?
Well,
It's
you're a
our
banker. You care about numbers. What's the story on the numbers?
It's kind of uncanny because every year we've been here, we're almost spot on with our chief economist and IHS. This year, little delta. We're at 17.2 and you're at 16.9 North American units. Maybe we've factored in the tax situation and consumer spending. And
because the consumer confidence is at an incredible all-time high.
It really is.
Yeah, it's hard to be a bear about this industry when you've got economic growth, consumer confidence, credit still pretty readily available. You've got a lot of things that are arguing well, and then as Rick rightly points out, the tax program, we do expect there to be some stimulative effects with that, absolutely. And you look at last year, we finished the year about 17.2
right
last year. So, in my mind, when I see 16.9 or 17, we're in spitting distance, and that's a good year in this industry.
The guy with the big smile is the chairman of the show, Ryan, who has about 21 dealerships. And if 16.9 is a bear year in the automotive industry, bring it on. Right, Ryan?
I'll take it all day, every day. Keep on bringing the higher number. I like 17.2 even better.
I bet you do. You know, Ryan, there's a lot going on, even more excitement than usual for the North American International Auto Show. I don't think that it's my imagination that the show is bigger than ever and better than ever.
You know, it grows every year. We have so much support from the city of Detroit, from Cobo, from all of our, obviously, manufacturers. We had some great reveals all week long, supplier days. You could barely even get around. There were so many suppliers here yesterday. It's just been awesome. It's been electric down here in Detroit.
It has been, and it's always exciting to come and to for the lay people who have a hand in this one way or another, and we all are affected by the auto industry, whether we work in it or not. And there's always the new models, the concept cars at the show. What can folks expect to see this year, Ryan?
So it depends on what your flair is, but every manufacturer has something great. Whether you go to imports and go over to the Mercedes G-Wagon or the Kia Forte or the Toyota Avalon or the Volvo XC60 that actually won Sport Utility of the Year, or you go domestics and look at the Lincoln Navigator. They got obviously the Sport Truck of the Year this year, or you can go over the Silverado, which is absolutely breathtaking. I mean, it's a big, huge, bold stance, or Ram. It's definitely a year of trucks, sport utilities, and some amazing cars. That Bullet Ford Mustang looks great. 9 new displays, and Automobility actually expanded 30,000 square feet. So we got a lot of things going on under one roof. It's a complete ecosystem of automotive all under this one roof.
I don't think our WJR listeners need to be reminded at how important the automotive industry is to the entire region and, of course, the entire nation, without question. And a lot of people aren't completely aware, Ryan, of the tremendous positive economic impact that this auto show has on this region. Give us just a little bit of that overview that you've shared with me before.
So it's so exciting. I mean, you look at, we gave tours with Mayor Duggan, obviously, this week, and all the civic leaders, just talking about what they're doing with the city of Detroit, and it's absolutely amazing with new restaurants, new hotels, what Cobo has done with, obviously, their expansions throughout the last few years. But you look at it, it's equivalent of 2 Super Bowls right here going on in the city of Detroit every single year. Last year, it contributed over $450 million in gross revenue. So we're so proud to be part of a huge event, a gem of the city right here in Detroit, with obviously the biggest show, obviously the Detroit Auto Show.
And we can't take it for granted It's real important. We can't just sit back and say, well, it's successful without me. They don't need me. We do need you. We need everybody, whether it's during the press days and the industry preview days for the OEMs, the suppliers, and all of those folks to be here in big numbers, and 5,000 of the international media, 60 different countries. But for these public days, the shows open to the public, we want a lot of people to show up because that also shows support. And by the way, it's the best way ever to look at new vehicles that you might be thinking about buying.
By far. I've had the privilege of traveling to all the shows around the world and through North America. What we don't realize is what a gem we have here in Detroit. It's one of the best shows in the entire world. Gets over 5,200, obviously, global press. We have 57 startups down there in actually automobility, demand on technology, and really a sneak peek behind the scenes of the future of automotive. And then you look at it, we'll have over 800,000 people coming through next week, starting this Saturday, actually, through the following Saturday, looking at these cars. You have over 1 million square feet of frontage, obviously, of showplace that will display all these cars under one roof. You can go from each manufacturer, see what their new and exciting products are, and I tell you, they all have phenomenal vehicles. We had over 50 vehicles revealed this week. Absolutely exciting. Definitely come down. It's family friendly. So many things under one roof. So just make sure you come down, see the city, come down to Cobo, and just enjoy the day.
It is a great family adventure. And Mike Wall, Director of Automotive Analysis, IHS Automotive, where are we in U.S. light vehicle sales in that cycle?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen very strong sales over the last several years. 2016 was a record, 17.6 million units sold in the U.S. Last year, we took a little bit of a step back, but again, 17.2 is very, very healthy sales environment. And like I said, we're at 16.9 this year, and and we can debate some of those tenths on that end from a performance perspective, but this is still a very healthy market. I mean, I would say bullish in terms of understanding the fact that, yeah, we're 7-8 years into the cycle, but we still feel that there's still gas in the tank. When you look at the size of the vehicle fleet, average age of vehicles about 11.7 years. So I mean, this is an older vehicle fleet as well. So it's set up well for replacement demand, which is music to everybody's ears in this industry.
In fact, we just heard a little of that music. It was really a nice touch that added to it. Was a nice sound effect that we added to what we were talking about. So,
but Paul, the thing about those sales numbers, and I want the listeners to understand, and what be music to Ryan's ears, it's the mix. Yeah. There's a lot more profit in SUVs and trucks than there are in Chevy Cruises, right?
Right.
With all due respect to Lordstown, Ohio, if you make $500 or $600 on a car versus $6,000 or $7,000, so I think the big news is the mix. I know we're going to get a tick up in gas rates this week because of whatever's going on in the Illinois refinery, which drives me crazy. But I still think gas outside of California is relatively reasonable.
Right.
But I think that's the big story, which makes us so excited, and I think the Tier 1s are pretty excited as well.
Well, the other big part of the story is that our industries have learned how to be profitable, and so they still are set up now to be profitable at 16 whatever.
Yep.
I mean, we had to go through hell to get there,
right.
But we did, and I don't think we've forgotten the lesson, and certainly we can't do certain things again that weren't healthy for the industry. So I think we're okay with that. What about you guys in PNC?
Well, we feel pretty good. What might surprise you a little bit, might surprise Ryan, is that we're not in the consumer auto leasing business, and I'm glad that we're not, because I think the residuals on the cars is going to be tricky, right? And you're looking at a guy that owns a car. I'm leasing a car, and I love it. It's a car, though, and it seems to be popular.
You guys made a nationwide business decision not to be in leasing.
Yeah, so we do a lot of floor planning, Ryan, and we do a lot of indirect paper, which is the paper that we bid on when the finance guy goes behind the wall, and it all gets bid out. So, Paul, it's really become automated. If you look at our indirect paper, by the time Ryan's director of finance hits the button, we probably have 21 seconds to bid on that paper, along with other banks, finance companies, etc. And so it's very automated.
I had no idea that it worked that way.
Yeah, it's, people say, well, my finance guy, he's going behind the curtain.
Right.
What they're doing is loading it in. But and so we do a lot of indirect paper. We do a lot of floor planning. And, of course, we have about $2 billion just in the state of Michigan, $2 billion out to tier ones and tier two and obviously the OEMs. So we're a player. We like this space. We think we understand it with the help of guys like Mike Wall. But it's definitely something that I think most Michiganders maybe don't appreciate if they don't have a reference point. Kind of like the airport. Unless you've flown somewhere else, you don't appreciate what a great airport we have. Well, I think, Ryan's comments about 2 Super Bowls, I think everybody in Metro Detroit needs to stand up and listen to that. This is a big deal.
I think the optimism that you're showing with the 17.2, that's great. We like that. And that's really good. What about vehicle prices? What do you think is going to happen in that area?
Well, it's interesting. We've definitely seen price inflation. It's pretty amazing what these vehicles now cost. But I think with electronics and everything, and quite frankly, we haven't talked about this, but the quality, especially of the U.S., is really, really gone up. If you think of 10 years ago where we were and where we are now with the quality of the U.S.,
yeah, tremendous.
I think
quality.
it holds its own against the foreigns all day long, and so. But and the cars are lasting longer.
Yeah,
As,
absolutely.
Mike was talking about the age of the fleet.
And when we look at vehicle pricing on our end, that's where we get a little bit more cautious, I guess. When you think about the leased vehicles that Rick was talking about, when those vehicles are coming off lease, they do enter the market. They enter the used car market. And we've seen some pressure on used car pricing, some deterioration, particularly in the car side, which makes sense, given the pressures facing the car segment. But we do expect, because of all the activity that's done on used vehicle sales, that will help absorb some of those off-lease vehicles. So it's not a gloom and doom scenario, but those are some of the puts and takes. And when you look at interest rates are poised to rise again this year,
yep.
So we're balancing some of that. But again, still quite healthy from an overall perspective.
In a gloom and doom area, we'd have to point out rising incentives, which have caused problems in the past. Maybe declining retail passenger car sales, maybe rising interest rates. I mean, there are some things to be aware of and pay attention to. We're not burying our heads in the sand.
Not at all. And I will say, too, I don't think the automakers are burying their heads in the sand nearly as much. Paul, you talked about how we kind of took our medicine back in the downturn. And now going forward, there are incentives, but they are very targeted. In where those vehicle programs, the cars in particular, weren't performing as well, they're targeted to that. And average transaction prices have actually had some pretty decent strength to them. That we've seen some pretty solid ATPs. That helps to balance that. But I think there has been a lot more discipline than we have seen in the past.
ATPs?
Average transaction price.
Yeah, but you knew that.
Ryan
he's
knew
living
that.
it. He knows.
and is what he's saying, is that are you living that specifically? Is that
by far? I tell you, they made some great comments. One, the manufacturers, especially the domestics, their cars are incredible. So they don't just compete with the imports. In some cases, they're much better. They've done a great job. All manufacturers have raised obviously their quality. Transaction prices are spot on. We don't make what you're referring to. The manufacturers make a lot more, obviously, in the sport utilities, but the healthier the manufacturer is, the more they can invest in R&D and obviously future products, and obviously plants here in Michigan, which a lot of them just announced coming back here to Detroit, which is huge for our economy. So there's so many great things. I'm smiling ear to ear looking at what you guys are talking about for the futures, and it's exciting to be a car dealer, and it's exciting, obviously, with what we have going on here in Detroit. And our forecasts are the same way. I mean, last year we sold 25,000 vehicles, just over here in Michigan. Our forecast is just under 30,000 this year. So we're seeing the growth.
Did you say LaFontaine sold 25,000 cars?
Correct. Right here in Michigan, we have 21 dealerships. So I'm experiencing firsthand what you're referring to, but there's a lot more discipline on rebates. They don't have to sit here and put that out there. There's still a huge demand for used cars. Of course, leasing in our market's huge. We still do probably 70% leasing. Everyone wants to get a new vehicle every few years. So there is that balancing act. It seems like that's higher depending on manufacturer. But, there's some great products. And what's awesome right here in Detroit, you get to see them all showcased, because every one of them, it just depends what you're passionate about. You can get excited about them all. I mean, you walk around, and I remember coming here as a child. I mean, it's just great. I mean, we have such a gem right here in Michigan to sit here and enjoy, obviously, Detroit Auto Show and see it all here next week. So excited to have everyone down.
the enthusiasm that Ryan brings to being the chairman of the 2018 North American International Auto Show is very obvious right here, right now. But we're looking at a guy who I've watched you develop into this person that you are, and so successfully taking the family business from maybe 2 or 3 dealerships to 21 or so. You and Kelly, your sister, and the whole family. But didn't you sell your first car when you were like 15 or something?
I was 15 years old. I went to my mom and said, "Hey, I'm done being a porter. I'd like a shot."
Wait a minute. You were a porter before you had a driver's license.
Yeah. You are right.
Probably worked all the jobs.
Yeah, I did work them all. I never left a lot though, just on the parking lot. But sold my first. It was a Pontiac minivan, Montana. First day on the job. Just went out there with my passion, excitement. Didn't know what I was doing, but the lady I sold it to was gracious, and it was a lot of fun.
Been a beginner's luck, all the other sales guys said after they were beaten out by a 15-year-old. You have a couple of thoughts here.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking about rising interest rates, and while that is a concern, I still think the consumer feels pretty good, especially if you look at the stock market, Paul. I mean, you look at the household wealth right now. I think that kind of balances out the increase in interest rates. And, so I think people are feeling pretty good, so absent some global surprise, like another meteor or something, but, I think people are feeling pretty good about where they are in the upcoming season here. So
right.
We're pretty bullish on 18, 19, I don't know, after the midterms, we'll see.
I mean, you have to look at it in perspective. I mean, you think back to 08, 09. What was the czar? 12 million?
Yeah.
Somewhere around that range. So, I mean, we're talking about all-time records. When you're talking about a couple 100,000 units in the U.S., we're still in all-time record times. Great times to be in the business and growing. There's a lot of excitement, and definitely, obviously, the future looks bright.
Yeah, when you're in that 16 to 17 million unit zone, that is profit making for automakers, suppliers,
What
dealers.
about the suppliers? We haven't talked much about them.
Yeah.
What's your outlook for suppliers?
Yeah, outlook for suppliers is actually still quite positive. When you look at, obviously we talk about some of the pressures on the car programs, but at the same time, these suppliers are actually very well diversified, and we're seeing them. They're on truck programs, and crossovers are huge, obviously, and so that's really helping to balance them. And the suppliers that I'm talking to, when I go and talk to them, they say, "Well, you're getting some downtime at this car plant." I say, "Yeah, but." We're running overtime on our truck line, and we really could use some downtime actually to do some maintenance and lower the overtime on some of these other areas and just recuperate. They are, by and large, doing still quite well.
Excellent. Rick, as one of the largest banks in all of the United States, PNC is a vital strategic partner with automotive companies of all sizes. Can you tell us a little bit about PNC's commitment to the auto industry overall?
Well, we've been in the space forever, which what I mean by that is through the cycle. And, back in May of 2009, we actually increased our exposure, didn't decrease, which is kind of counterintuitive, but actually it was a great opportunity for us. We feel good about our suppliers. Like I mentioned, we have $2 billion of commitments here in the great state of Michigan alone, not counting the rest of the country.
That was last year alone, $2 billion?
$2 billion. With that said, one thing we haven't touched upon, which doesn't maybe affect Ryan unless he's thinking of going global, Europe is actually, was a drag. North America was dragging Europe along, but Europe is not doing awful.
It's not at all.
It's not, happy days are here again, but, and it's a difference, right?
Yep.
I mean, Northern Europe is doing different than, say, maybe Southern Europe, but Europe is holding its own, and so that really gives us a cause. For a while there, a few years ago, we're like, we want to deal with suppliers that maybe are just North America. And, quite frankly, Europe is not the drag it once was. It's a positive contributor. India is, steaming along. And, the one thing about cars, i.e. not trucks, but maybe small SUVs and cars, India
definitely,
is definitely a place to be in that regard.
More so than China or along with China?
I think along with China.
Yeah, definitely. And the Europe point is a great point because we've seen that it has been sort of the quiet, strong player out there in terms of production and sales. We've seen some decent sales performance out of West Europe.
Any of this, the international changes and the other changes we're talking about, interest rates and all, is that impacting you, Ryan?
When you look at it, you have to pay attention to it all. I mean, obviously, you need, of course, North America strong, but when they have a global presence with all of them doing global platforms, they need to be strong in each market. So each market affects them. So if it's not performing in China or Europe, that affects their overall platform and what they can produce for future products, which will then translate over to here. Sometimes it affects where the cars are produced. We're very grateful that most manufacturers are really bringing their production into the U.S., which is great for us and great for our economy. So it's definitely something to pay attention to as we grow. And it's important to know it's cyclical. So just because cars aren't what everyone's picking right today, it's crucial to have a strong portfolio in sedans, because 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, people will switch, and all of a sudden that's what will be hot.
Sure.
So, small sport utilities, crossovers, and full-size utilities where it's at with trucks. But it's definitely important. You have to have a healthy portfolio across the entire lineup to stay strong for the long term.
What, Mike, other regions or areas of concern for this new year, 2018?
That's a great question. It's a tough question right now, because you're going to hear, when you hear, I turn on CNBC, Bloomberg, you're going to hear this concept of synchronized global growth, where we're seeing decent economic performance in Europe and North America and Asia and South America even coming back and recovering. And when I hear that, the paranoid side of me says, well, I think we just jinxed ourselves. Something's going to happen. But that's really what we have to watch for, I think, is that almost that unforecastable kind of thing that can happen. Is there going to be a policy mistake on the part of the Fed? Could they maybe raise too quickly and maybe to try to prevent overheating in the economy when maybe it isn't overheating as much as they're thinking it is? But again, a lot of those are harder to forecast. The challenge rate, it's not a challenge, it's a great problem to have. All the signs are still pointing quite positively. So, and now we're seeing it internationally. So it's a really we want to see, again, continued diversification on the part of suppliers, OEM diversification, product diversification. Ryan brought up, I think he's spot on. I really would not want to see these automakers getting out of too many car segments, because I know there's a lot of negativity on cars last year. And again, the consumer's moving to crossovers, but he's absolutely right. 2-3 years down the road, where are gas prices at?
Absolutely.
Affordability of vehicles. Do people start shifting back to?
Autonomous, it might.
Autonomous, absolutely.
Yeah.
So keeping that product portfolio as diverse as possible is critical.
And when those switch, the market switch so fast, they can't adapt. So like you said, and all the manufacturers, I'm fortunate to have quite a few of them, they're investing heavy in their sedans. So none of them are walking away. They're, of course, investing heavy, obviously, in their sport utilities, crossovers, and trucks. But it's the full lineup, and they're aware of, obviously, the importance of sedans.
And maybe it's a good time to pivot, and talk about hybrid, electric, give us a forecast, because it's kind of interesting. When you talk to people on the coast, this bi-coastal, East Coast, West Coast, they're already like getting ready for the obituary for the combustion engine, right? And there's still, some forecasts that say by 2030, maybe 30%. But if you could kind of go through IHS's kind of forecast on this.
It's important to point out that last year, 2017, we still sold 99% of the vehicles sold, 99 plus, had some sort of combustion engine in them. Going forward, you hear these pronouncements, and a lot of them are kind of pronounced as these top-down kind of pronouncements. 25% of the vehicles in 2025 are going to be full electric vehicle. And it's not in our base case scenario either. Believe me, when we see it, hybridization activity is definitely picking up, and you hear that here at the show too, where we're going to see maybe some plug-in hybrids and some regular hybrids. But look at also all the advanced internal combustion technology. There's just the Silverado right over our shoulder. Dynamic fuel management. It takes cylinder deactivation on steroids practically. You look at some of the diesel penetration on the truck side. It's been a big show. It's been Truck Fest 2018, it feels like, in some ways here, because you've got some phenomenal truck launches with diesel powertrains and advanced internal combustion gas powertrains as well.
Looking at a 3-cylinder.
Yep, absolutely. We see a lot of activity on downsizing engines as well. So that technology, electrification is coming, and we are moving down that path, but we don't see it kind of happening overnight to what some of the pronouncements are out there.
And it continues to happen, let's face it. It's not because people are screaming for electric vehicles. And this is when the auto industry gets in trouble. We try to please our government. And it's our government and the CAFE regulations that they're scrambling to get that are due in 2025. Let's be honest and realistic.
It's true.
Yeah. And that's what automakers are trying to march towards. That's why we're seeing all the lightweighting too. All these vehicles, every time they launch a new vehicle, they talk how much weight they've taken out of the car. That creates opportunities for suppliers, and it creates opportunities for automakers to try to advance that fuel economy. But it's a tough battle, and Ryan's going to see, he sees people coming into the dealership and want a bigger vehicle, I want this vehicle, but yet you've got these marching cafe orders, so you're trying to marry the two sides. It can be tricky.
The manufacturers have done such a great job of, like you said, making so many engines so efficient. What they can do with smaller engines and still keep the torque and horsepower is amazing, and they're making them lighter. Is autonomous coming? It's here. But what is the consumer demand? Right? I mean, obviously we had E85 a few years ago. You obviously have electric. Then you obviously have the hybrids. You have all this technology, and it's awesome, and it's important that we obviously continually invest in it. But we have to be realistic on what the consumer's demand is going to be, and there's a passion for the car business. There's a passion for driving cars. People don't just go there and want always be driven around. They want to sit here and get behind that wheel, feel that power, enjoy that vehicle, but there's definitely a spot for everything, and that's what we have to realize is our business has been around for a long time. It's important to adapt. Technology is changing rapidly. I consider myself young. I'm 40 years old. 18 years ago, when I first was at college, that you look back, that's when internet was really just taking off. So think about the last 18 years, how much has changed. It's going to change. We got to follow that cheese. We got to be adapt and be relevant. But this industry will, the suppliers will embrace the technology and will meet it where the consumers want it.
Right.
Mike, some of the key vehicle introductions from where you sit for 2018 in the U.S. and some of the key growth technologies in automotive over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond.
It's going to be a fun year, and you see it out here on the show floor, frankly. I mean, you see some of these truck introductions that are just phenomenal. The Silverado and the Ram, for anybody who's going to be coming to the show, check out the interior of the Ram. My gosh, amazing. You're going to think you're in a Tesla Model S when you see the dashboard on that and the center cluster. Just phenomenal. So it is a truck. There is a little bit of a truck, obviously, bent to it. Wrangler is a big launch year for Wrangler this year. Very tail end of the year, Ford will be launching the Ranger, and we see it out on the show floor. So there's a fair amount of launch activity.
We have a
on.
2019 Silverado right outside here at the Chevrolet stand. That's almost 500 pounds lighter than the last model, and it's a lot better model.
It doesn't look great.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a great stance.
Hey, you talk about technology trends. So the autonomous, it was mentioned earlier, autonomous is here. You go out into most of these cars, you're seeing those building blocks of really full autonomy, but in different components. And I firmly believe the dealers out there are on the front lines of deploying this technology. The automakers are integrating it. The dealers educate, and they really bring the customer up to speed and are going to help with that adoption and getting the comfort level around it as we move from the level 1 technology all the way to level 4, level 5, where the car really does start to drive itself. Yeah. So it's an exciting time when you think about that.
Rick, I don't want us to run out of time before we talk about this wonderful thing that PNC does every year, and I sure hope you're doing it again.
We are.
Bringing these Detroit public school kids in, and preschool children to the auto show for an exciting day of activities. 400 or more of these kids. You're doing it again. Tell us about it.
We're doing it again on Thursday of the public week. It'll be 2,700 children we've brought through the auto show. And Paul, we have not lost one yet. But it's a full day of activities, more of a STEAM. It does include the arts. But we started in the beautiful new ballroom, the ballroom that overlooks the river. Yep. What a treat it is, And we started in there. They actually go through a few hands-on exhibits here on the floor, and then it finishes off with actually a parade where I get to ride in some pretty cool cars.
How cool is that?
I don't drive it, but I ride. It's really a great day for the kids, and we also encourage a lot of the parents to participate. And at PNC, we cut it off. I think at 55 employees are donating their time to help out.
And everybody wants to do it.
Everybody. It's oversubscribed, but it's become kind of our calling card, as you know.
In your DNA,
and
I always say.
Detroit Public Schools needs as much help as they can. And, and you think about, I'm just going back to Ryan's comment about being here as a kid. I was here as a kid, And what's really funny is think about the lens of looking straight at the wheel. And those little feet have to go a ways. But we hope that, if we do this right, we'll inspire some young girls, young boys to get into the automotive space. As you know, that's one of our biggest challenges in this state is trying to get talent to understand that it's pretty cool to be in the auto space. It really is.
It is from watching you in the past, Rick DeVore, this is as much fun for you as it is for the little kids.
It is.
But it is a fun-filled day with hands-on educational activities. You focus in on science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Yes, that's STREAM education, designed to spark curiosity, foster imagination, and get more kids into this industry because it's a great one.
Absolutely. And we'll have some Sesame Street characters here, and as usual, and just sign the contract for that. And
that's awesome.
So it's a great day.
Good for you.
And from an outsider looking in, what PNC does for Detroit, the auto show, and just the automotive world is amazing. So we appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
Let us close with this, thanking you all. Mike Wall, Director of Automotive Analysis, IHS Automotive. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we take notes with what you say from year to year, and you're always right.
Isn't
that something? You're
amazing.
Always right. And I want to thank our very busy chairman of the 2018 North American International Auto Show, Ryan LaFontaine, and congratulate you on the job you've done. This is a project that he started working on 5 or 6 years ago through the system to finally get to be here as chairman, and you've done a great job.
It's amazing. It's hard to believe that it's already Black Tie Auto Show's tomorrow already. I mean,
right.
You just look around the show space and look at all the people here on supplier and industry days. It's electric. I mean, this city's awesome. We are very proud to be part of it and very proud of, obviously, the show and the growth each and every year. And it's just going to get better each and every year coming, obviously, embracing the technology. It's going to be fun.
You're putting pressure on Bill Golling, who's your vice chair and will be the chair next year, as you hand the gavel over to him tomorrow night, Friday night.
Billy's a great man. I tell you, he'll be up for the challenge, and we'll all be here to help and support. It's a great team. Rod Alberts, his entire team, Max, everyone just pitches in. It's a great fun network of dealers, and obviously the DADA, and everyone. It takes an army to put this on. It takes great suppliers, great, obviously, people that support us and continually, obviously, partner up with us each and every year to make this show the greatest show in the world. And very proud of, obviously, those efforts.
As well you should be. And I want to thank our co-host and the guy who makes this program, also one of the greatest shows in the world. This program happened again. Our PNC Round Table, the president of PNC Bank, Rick DeVore. Thank you for bringing us all together again. Final word goes to you.
Well, I look forward to tomorrow. As we all affectionately call it, the prom. I know you are the master of ceremonies there. And the weather's going to be, knock on wood, decent. We've had some...
First time ever. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be fabulous. We're looking forward to that. A lot of people will be here, but thank you for what you do always. And I especially like what you're doing once again with those kids coming in here and getting an introduction they wouldn't get otherwise.
Okay, more to come on that.
All right.
I especially like your $17.2 million prediction.
I bet
I like
he likes
yours
me a
better.
little bit more than Mike.
He's going to sleep a lot better tonight with that one.
That's for sure.
Thanks for being with us here in the PNC Round Table. For Mike Wall, Director of Automotive Analysis at IHS Automotive, Ryan LaFontaine, Chairman of the 2018 North American International Auto Show and the LaFontaine Automotive Group, and, of course, our President, co-host, President of PNC Bank, Rick DeVore. I'm Paul W. Smith. I'll talk to you in the mornings, Monday through Friday, 5:30 till 9. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Paul.